Hello and welcome to Bread and Rosaries, the left Christian podcast that hated the royal family before it was cool. I'm Ben Molyneux-Headington. I'm joined by Adam Spears. Say hi, Adam.
Hello. How you doing?
Not too bad. And we are joined tonight by returning champion, Jonty Langley, back for a second portion, tolerated us well enough once, admittedly moved to another continent to get away from us, but still came back once the distance was established. Welcome back, Jonty. How you doing?
I'm all right. Safety first, man. Safety first. That's what it's all about. It's nice to be here. It's nice to see you guys again.
Yeah, I think we last spoke actually either video or in person when I ran into you at Greenbelt in
Yes.
the summer, which now I'm saying out loud is quite a long time ago.
That is a long time ago. Yeah.
Which makes you think the last episode with you was also quite a long time ago.
Truth, it was a while ago. How have the episodes been? I have not listened to mine. So I'm not kidding.
I'd say relatively consistently shit, which is kind of the level we're going for. So
Wrong. We're going from strength to strength. We're getting better every episode.
I don't believe a word of the relatively shit stuff at all. I don't. Yeah.
Jonty, for people who don't remember your last appearance, do you want to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. My name's Jonty Langley. I'm the editor of Shibboleth magazine and the co-host of the Beer Christianity podcast. Shibboleth magazine is a kind of magazine for leftist Christians and the Christian adjacent. And I think if you're a liberal, you could probably enjoy it and learn a few things. I think if you're an atheist or anti-religious, you could probably still dig it. And Beer Christianity is like that, but drunker.
Yeah, I think that's good news both for listeners to the podcast, but also potentially for the editing quality of the magazine, that you do edit it, if not sober, then more sober than you record the podcast.
Absolutely. I can't remember who said it. I always want to think that it's Hunter S. Thompson, but I think it may have been someone awful like Hemingway who said, write drunk, edit sober. And I'm like, sure, but I mean, let's not be unreasonable. So, yeah.
Speaking of drinking, in the spirit of Beer Christianity, we should ask what everyone is drinking, because that's
amazing.
What you often do on yours. So, and Jonty, you look like you really have committed to it. So, what are you drinking, Jonty?
I am drinking a pomegranate soda with Angostura bitters because I have a hernia and the doctor has told me to stop drinking alcohol. She didn't say for how long, which is alarming. So I have been distressingly sober for some time now. And I gotta say, I don't know how people do it, but that's where I am. And I'm drinking it out of an enormous balloony gin glass, which I really love, which is pink.
The colour itself just looks incredible. I don't know how it tastes what you're drinking, but it's certainly a beautiful looking drink. Yeah,
it actually looks dangerous, potentially more dangerous than actual alcohol. So.
I think this may hurt my liver more than alcohol, to be fair. I don't know what's in bitters, but if any of the listeners want to get in touch and say don't use a lot of it, I put a shit ton of bitters in this, and I'm not sure that's how bitters is meant to be consumed. So I have concerns, but yeah. What are you guys drinking?
I am drinking a delicious can of Pepsi Max. I genuinely spent a long time stood in front of my fridge being like, and this is how sad old man I've become, where I was like, it's a Sunday night. Do I really want to have a cider? And genuinely went, no, I don't. I don't.
A cider.
Yeah. Genuinely, that was the... and the reason I went, the story of the Pepsi Max is those who know me in real life will know that I am an absolute fiend for Diet Coke. But unfortunately, Coca-Cola is on the BDS list. I've had to transfer to Pepsi Max. And look, some people are getting arrested. I'm drinking Pepsi Max. Personally, I see no difference between those two actions.
I think you're the real victim, if anyone.
Yeah.
This is suffering for the cause.
I think Pepsi, I don't think are on the BDS list, but they're not on the really good list, are they?
Yeah, right. No, sure. Yeah. But apparently there is some sort of Palestine cola brand.
Yeah, there is.
Yes, there is.
There's a few, I think, actually.
Yeah.
but I have not come across them in the wild. So if I do, and it tastes anywhere near as good as the nectar of the gods that is Diet Coke, then I will happily transfer. For now, I am transferring across the Pepsi Max.
They used to sell it at the Reading International Solidarity Centre, which is this lovely lefty place that sells all sorts of lefty stuff, and there's this great book. Yeah,
On
I
your
know.
bike then, Ben. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Head to Reading. That's all I'm saying.
As someone who grew up not far from Reading,
Oh, really?
No, I will not go back to Reading. Reading
we're
is
sorry to all the people of Reading that you
Reading
have
is
to live
why-
in such a shithole.
Reading is where I went out when I was 18 years old. That was
wow.
because it was the nearest place you go for a night out.
Wait,
And,
where were
yeah,
you? Where were you going from? Where did you grow up near Reading?
the beautiful town of Bracknell.
Oh, wow.
I feel like London is probably also a place where you could go out if you're from Bracknell.
I would have thought.
It's getting home again. So from Reading, you can get a taxi. If you split it between a few of you, it's like I'm probably a lot more now, but it used to be like a tenner each. You were not getting a taxi back from London, and the trains. The last train back to where I grew up from London left London Waterloo at 11:20, and I know this because most gigs finished at 11, and we used to have to like absolutely hightail it back, and like I have sprinted down Waterloo Concourse, and I never missed the train. I
Impressive.
don't know how I managed this because 11:20 is a tight turnaround.
Yeah.
But if you go on a night out, that is too early a train home.
I would miss it every time. It's just the person I am.
Every time. No, I would be there an hour early, and I used to go out to gigs in London with my drinking buddy Ben, who was the original host on Beer Christianity, or one of the original co-hosts on Beer. And I would get there, and then he'd go, I fancy a beer. And then I'd say, but no one's selling beer. He's like, no, I can convince somebody to sell me a beer. And then it would literally be like 3 minutes before. And I'm like, well, I'll see you when you get home, I guess, because I'm getting on the train. And he would always kind of, dash up and get on. The train was moving before I saw him. And then he'd be there with a can of beer, which is very nice and lovely. I don't know how he did it and who he mugged for it, but, shout out to that.
I respect the choices.
Yeah, absolutely. Me, I'm getting on the train every time. I'm not I'm not
No
running.
risks.
Yeah, no.
Adam, what are you drinking?
Well, I really wanted to commit to the bit. So I went to try and find the weirdest non-alcoholic drink I could find because I don't drink alcohol. And I decided really that I needed to get some pussy. So,
amazing!
So that's what I've got.
I had no idea they still made that. That's incredible.
For those people not watching on YouTube, Adam, please explain why you just said that, because on the audio context.
And also, I had no idea they still made that.
Yeah. Let's not question that.
This is the future the left wants, or something. Yeah.
So the reason I said that is because I just really needed everyone to know how manly I was. No, there's a drink you can get called pussy, and I Googled this because, as I say, this is how committed to the bit I was. Apparently, the guy who started Pussy, so it is I always assumed it was a foreign company that had translated poorly or something. It's not. It's a British company, and the guy who started it was inspired by the naming of Virgin by Richard Branson to start a company with a stupid, slightly sexual name because he thought it would sell lots of drinks, and he was right.
Amazing.
I'm going to open it. Does anyone want to hear?
That was beautiful, clean.
Oh, I like that. I like that. But tell me what it tastes like. What is the flavor?
I have never tasted it before, so.
Would you like to know what pussy tastes like?
Shut up, Ben. I knew.
I couldn't help it.
It's
as I
fruity.
said it. Well, there we go. Same.
Well, I think we should potentially move swiftly on from this topic conversation. It can only get us in further trouble. Let us move on to our usual starting segment. What else is on my mind, Grapes?
What else is on my mind, Grapes?
And Adam, you had something in your mind, Grapes, that you were so excited that you already told me when I saw you in person the other week, and you still want to talk about it again now because it's so exciting.
It's not so much that it's exciting, it just made me laugh a lot. So my partner, she went out with some old school friends of hers a week or so ago, whenever it was, and they all got talking and so on about old school friends and school days and so on. And about halfway through this, I got a message from my partner saying that she had just remembered that she was in the same year at school as Zara Sultana, and that she'd only remembered that she'd gone to school with Zara Sultana when she was talking to her school friends, and her school friends had said, "Oh yeah, Zara's like a politician now or something."
Or something.
And the thing is, so my partner had apparently on a few previous occasions, sort of, in like the back of her head, thought, "Oh, isn't it weird how Zara looks like that politician and has the same name as that politician?"
That's wild.
And apparently, like at school, she had even like said that she wanted to be prime minister one day, which is obviously never going to happen. But like you think that
the march of your party will go on. We are marching in the institution.
Surely, Ben, your slate wouldn't have a prime minister. The prime minister is the people.
Absolutely. down with the like tyranny of individual leadership. 100%.
Yes, the reactionary bastard Jeremy Corbyn.
Okay, but I want to know: was Zara at school? Was she like fully a Tory? That's what I want to hear. I want to hear the scoop.
No, apparently not. Like, apparently she was always like, and she wasn't an asshole either. Apparently, so
awesome.
That's
so nice to hear.
And genuinely surprising, I would say. Like,
yeah. I mean, it was my first question as well. So
that's great. Oh, it's so nice to not be disappointed by something, just occasionally,
I mean, I feel like she's disappointed us later on. So
yeah.
But Adam, you're disappointed in her because she's not an anarchist.
I'm disappointed in her because she's a politician.
Yeah. It's not anything she's specifically done. It's just in general. I have to admit that I think that makes her better than me because I ran as a Lib Dem candidate in our mock election at school.
Heresy! Remove this filth!
That's my shameful past.
Disgusting.
Shame.
Absolutely disgusting.
I will admit, I will say, I was a little bit younger than Zach Polanski was when he was a Lib Dem, so there is hope for us all. we can all grow and change, and hopefully I have done. But yeah, I was a few weeks shy of my 18th birthday when the 2015 election, is that right? No, not 2015. I'm not that young. Christ. 2010 election. That was the coalition. A few weeks shy of my 18th, and I was really gutted. And in retrospect, that was such a blessing because I absolutely would have voted Lib Dem.
Yeah.
I did vote Lib Dem.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone did. Like, we were all deceived, but I was only like 21, I think.
But when you're a kid, I think, like, you're doing pretty well not to be a full-on, like, libertarian. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I think, to be fair, my family would have cut my face off if I'd been a libertarian, so...
I grew up in South Africa, so, being a libertarian made you really fucking progressive, so it was like...
Finally, those capitalist pigs will pay for their crimes, eh?
Amen.
That's a new one on the soundboard, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah. I thought I just had it at the top. I couldn't remember what it was. It just says "capitalist pigs," so I thought I'm going to play that because it seems relevant.
Do you have the John Candy one from Tropic Thunder where he's been re-educated? Because everything he says is true, and I'm behind it 100%. So every time I see the clip, I'm like, yes. I don't know why you're laughing.
Yeah. What is the joke here?
I never felt comfortable with Tropic Thunder because of the whole blackface thing.
Okay, but I have seen so many black leftists going like, that's not what that is. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. I feel slightly more okay about it. I'm still going to say it quietly, obviously. I don't know what's okay and what's not. But I'm pretty convinced it's quite funny, mainly just for his lines about Paul Hogan and Crocodile Dundee, which I just think is ludicrous and very amusing.
Recommendation of the podcast, watch Tropic Thunder.
No! That is not what I said.
Official take from Jonty there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Shibboleth's editorial line is...
Is it that blackface is okay? Is that...
Fucking hell. Oh no.
I mean, I know that I know that there's a lot of right-wing nastiness in South Africa, as you say, but that's probably a bit of a step too far, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like you've taken the boy out of but not. Yeah. Anyway. No, I found at the time when I watched it at the time, I was like, "Holy shit, this is blackface. This is very brave." But it's a white man doing blackface. But I don't know. It's not even blackface. It's very interesting. It's got a very interesting dynamic. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm also not condemning it. I'm just saying it's an interesting, and I don't think I should have an opinion. I don't think we should be talking about
That's what you are.
I don't think we should be talking about this.
What are you, a Lib Dem?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we've all outed ourselves as Lib Dems here, haven't we?
Right, well, that's it. We're shutting the podcast down. I'm with Nick. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, you're with Nick. Does that mean you work for Meta now? Is that...
Honestly, that's sellout. Unbelievable.
Yeah. You've almost got to respect it. Like, why not go and make some money? It's not like any of the rest of us have worked out how to do that, is it? So, if he can do it, more power to him.
I feel like we have. Like, this is the thing. So apparently my partner's brother said to her one day, if Adam was a capitalist, he'd be really dangerous. Because I feel like, because I think he's probably right. Like, I think I'd be good at it. Like, I think I'd be ruthless,
Yeah, no, I think a lot of us, it's like a lot of my friends say, I'm glad you're a Christian because otherwise you'd be running a very, very unpleasant cult. And I'm like, yes, I would. So,
I mean, those two things aren't necessarily like...
No, absolutely. And people are like, if only there was a cult where they'd mixed, like leftist, politics and Christian stuff. And I was like, well, it was Jim Jones for a bit, and that didn't, let's not take that as our example.
Well, I mean, surely it was the early church for a bit.
Well, that's also true. Yeah.
That's a better line.
Better than Jim Jones.
Yeah. It is. Arguably, I mean, who ended up killing more people over the long term? We got to own that. You know what I mean?
On that note, let us segue smoothly into our main topic of today's conversation, which is to kind of riff a little bit on the latest issue of Shibboleth, which talks about evangelism. So, Jonty, why do you love evangelism so much that you decided to make the topic of an entire issue?
I just think people need to stop going to hell willingly, and that wasn't the reason we made.
You can tell what church you go to.
No, I think we did it because it's something that needs to be spoken about more, and we're trying to make the magazine something that can be useful for people in kind of rethinking and reframing a whole bunch of stuff that they were taught in particularly evangelical or traditional mainline kind of churches. And evangelism, I think, is a question that progressives haven't fully kind of reckoned with. I know for myself, I for years have been kind of wrestling with this, and there's so much in it about is there anything particularly distinctive about Christianity? If you've abandoned the concept of hell, is there any point in telling anybody about it? We have a lot of, just like evangelicals, we have a lot of trite lines that we tend to kind of trot out, and I don't think we are always that honest or that I don't know. I think there can be a kind of, let's just not talk about this, kind of like Tropic Thunder. It's safer not to, and we just don't need to think about it. And I think it's worth thinking about a little bit more, if only so that we can bring others on the journey that we've been on, which is evangelism. But helping people who have questions about it, because I think all of us who have deprogrammed a little from fundamentalism or from kind of conservative evangelicalism, I think we do have something to offer those who are feeling like there's there's something wrong in this religious space that I'm in, and I don't fully buy it, but questioning any of this feels like the whole house of cards falls down. And I just think on most of these topics we need to be thinking a little bit more honestly, and I don't know, coherently is probably the thing. So that's why we did it. And there was just a whole bunch of stuff that suddenly slotted into place. Let's be honest, when I put the magazine themes together, it's usually just a kind of vague vibe that starts coalescing. Sometimes it's, a week before I have to start commissioning that I'm like, oh yes, this is the theme now. But the next one, it took me ages to work out what we're going to be talking about, and then once it kind of coalesces, then you realize, okay, this is what, and then suddenly you've got loads of ideas of things, people to ask, and things to talk about and stuff. So we also want to make sure that we're not just talking about like politics all the time. There needs to be stuff that makes it relevant to Christians specifically, or people kind of in the orbit of Christianity as well, just occasionally.
That's kind of a form of evangelism itself, isn't it?
I think so.
You and your magazine, yeah.
I mean, I guess in a way, but hopefully not the one that's threatening people. The thing is evangelism in itself bad? I struggle.
Well, this is the question, isn't it? Yeah.
I struggle to accept that, and I know that can make you a bad progressive or a bad leftist Christian or whatever space we want to call ourselves, theologically progressive or liberal or whatever. But if something is good and true or helpful, surely you'll want to tell people about it. Like, I'm unapologetically evangelical about leftist politics. I don't argue with people as much online about faith because it's too important to fuck around with, to be honest. And I don't mind misrepresenting Karl Marx. I do mind misrepresenting Jesus. So I guess that makes me still an old school conservative. I just think for me, it's something I struggle with a lot and I wrestle with a lot. And so I wanted to hear what other smarter people had to say about it to see if it clarified anything for me.
I think that point about politics is a really good one. That's something I've talked about before, that I kind of feel like I don't have an urge to evangelize about Christianity anymore. But to some extent, I have just taken that urge that I was brought up with and just transposed it onto my politics, right? I do want to win people over to left politics. And I think that's good. Like, I think that's a reasonable thing to want. And I suppose there is a distinction between... I think you've kind of got the question of what you are evangelizing for, how are you evangelizing for it, right? And I think on both of those, like, I think I'm more comfortable evangelizing for my political viewpoints, trying to win people to that. And actually, the approach I take to that is very different to the approach that I certainly, when I was involved in evangelicalism, was the kind of approach of that. But I don't know, it feels quite hard to actually get rid of that impulse. Like, winning people over to your point of view, I don't know if it's a base human impulse, but it's certainly a very common human desire to win people over to your side of things, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think there's something interesting about how you've both just spoken about evangelism, though, because you've both kind of, I think, implicitly spoken about evangelism as almost like a sliding scale from like kind of okay evangelism to like arsehole evangelism, right? And at the kind of okay level, it's kind of you're kind of like, oh, let's be nice to people kind of evangelism, and at the arsehole end, it's like, let's shout at people and cast demons out of them and stuff. And I think what's interesting is that you've both, I think, kind of implicitly implied that evangelism, it's more evangelistic in a sense to directly try to tell someone about a thing, whatever that is, than it is to kind of, I don't know, live your life in a way that shows that thing. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I think for me, the core question is more fundamental though, and it's why, why am I doing this or not doing this? And what does that say about the faith? Is a really fundamental question that I'm still wrestling with. Because I think, like Ben, I've moved quite far away from where I was in terms of, and I was never standing with a megaphone, and I was never threatening people with hell particularly, although I did hold that theology for sure. But to me, it was really important that I somehow showed them that this faith and this God were good and worth following. And I think part of that was very cult. I think part of that was join us in here, become one of us. And I think that's an unhealthy motivator and impetus within a lot of even well-meaning evangelism that isn't, awful, even in its content. But I think a fair amount of it was just like, but this has made such a difference to me. Maybe it could make a difference to you. Like I felt the same about Violent Femmes, Pixies, and Nine Inch Nails. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, but how can you not understand how fucking awesome this is? And obviously I would be much more of a dick about music to people because it doesn't matter as much. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, Adam. I just think for me, it's like the question is, yeah, I don't know. For me, it's about the why, yeah. I think what you're saying is also really important, though.
The distinction I guess in my head is that for politics, you need weight of numbers. Like ultimately, if I want to win the political changes I want to see, I need to recruit a bunch of people to my way of thinking, right? And my understanding of Christianity is, although I think it's a communal religion, right? Like I do think there's something about people doing it together that's important, that ultimately I don't need, what you believe doesn't impact my ability to practice my Christianity, right? Like you can be an atheist, a Muslim, a different type of Christian, whatever else, but what you believe doesn't fundamentally impact my ability to practice Christianity, but it does fundamentally impact my ability to practice my politics. And I don't want to kind of get into the private and public. I don't think that's I'm not saying there's a clean divide like that, but just on a practical level, I guess that's how I see it. And I just feel more comfortable being evangelical politically than I do in religious terms.
Adam, how would you answer that question?
Sorry, I forgot to listen because Ben accidentally clicked the mute button halfway through his thing, and it got me thinking about the edit later.
It did not happen by accident. I needed to burp, so I muted myself for a second while I burped, which I thought would be helpful for the edit.
It just got me confused.
Yeah, no, I was like, shit, I'm about to burp and I'm mid-sentence. Let me just pause it. This is why you shouldn't get me to, specifically bring a drink for this.
Okay, ask me the question again, and then we'll seamlessly,
Okay. Adam, how would you answer the question, though?
I mean, you've got to ask me the actual question because I literally can't remember.
I don't remember the question. This is your question. I was hoping you could remind me because I'm pretty sure I trailed off in a really ineffectual, fucking vague way because I was like, God, I don't know what the fucking question was.
Look, I'll be honest with you.
The content of it. Or, what was it?
I'll be honest with you, Jonty. My brain wandered off before Ben didn't burp into the microphone because I started thinking about how evangelical I get about the Norwegian Baltic metal band Trollfest.
Well, to be fair, we can all relate to that, I'm assuming. Yeah,
you were talking, Adam, about that distinction between, that we seem to be making a distinction between good evangelism and bad evangelism.
Well, what I was finding interesting is that it seemed to me like you were talking about it in a way that suggested that the quote unquote good evangelism was a lesser form of evangelism. It was less evangelistic. And I'm not sure that holds, right? I think I don't necessarily think they're both, I think they're both a kind of evangelism. It's just one's shit and one's not,
Well, it's so interesting because the people in the magazine who were talking about it, we got people like Brian Recker, who's talking about like his own personal experience of kind of hell-orientated evangelism, and that I think we can all agree is bad, and it's very easy to move on from that. Sorry, go.
Okay. This is not quite a hot take because I do actually agree with you.
Okay.
However, I was listening to there's a couple of things with this. I was listening to The Word in Black and Red recently, which is a great podcast. And Micah, who hosts that, was saying that they actually don't believe they actually still believe in hell. Right? They are like anarchists, like straight up like radical Christian, but they still believe in hell. They don't believe very many people are going there, but they believe that the fuckers who are like arming a genocide and like have billions of pounds, dollars, or whatever, absolutely are going there. And I think that's an interesting. I think it's an interesting take, not one I agree with, but it's an interesting take, and it always reminds me. And I've said this before, probably on this podcast, but it sort of reminds me about that link between how people conceive of justice through a spiritual lens and how hell comes into that, right? Because when you look at how enslaved people received Christianity in ways that were informative to their own search for justice, a lot of them believed in hell. A lot of them went for the Calvinist kind of idea of it, because what kind of Christianity are you going to believe in when you're being oppressed every single day, when you're having your children ripped away from you, when you're being forced to literally slave away in fields to make money for other people and being beaten for it and murdered for it? Well, you're going to believe in a Christianity that says, no, these people they're going to get their comeuppance. God's going to give them what they're due, right? And I think we dismiss that a little too quickly sometimes on the left and in progressive Christianity, even if I don't personally believe in hell, right?
So I would be softer than those guys about it, but I probably do lean that way in saying I'd be softer in the sense that I'd say, look, we really just don't know, and I don't think there's a lot of, like, if we were meant to have a firm understanding of what happened after death, like, we'd have a lot more information. Like, there would be significantly more interest in the Bible in answering those questions, right? And there just isn't really, right? But I mean, Jesus does talk. I know he talks about it in certain ways, and I don't think the kind of classical understanding of hell as where non-Christians go is right or useful. But I'm certainly open to the idea of there being a hell where some people go, potentially not permanently, right? I guess I kind of almost have a
like Gregory of Nyssa kind of approach of the purgatorial fire kind of thing.
Yeah, but I'm kind of not. I'm not willing to say, do you know what, there definitely isn't a hell, because as the glib line goes, then where on earth is Margaret Thatcher?
Incredible.
I guess
then
fair point.
It is like at that point that Francis Buffett makes in Unapologetic, where he says that the atheist bus campaign was so wildly insensitive of, if you say there's probably no God, so just go on and enjoy your life, is just the smugness that you want to take away the one hope that somebody who has a genuinely horrific existence is monstrous.
Just doesn't enter their minds, does it? In that phrase, so enjoy your life. Well,
and the idea that for some people life is not a middle class doddle. It is the suffering of disease, and it is suffering, and that the idea that the only thing that God's existence could mean is fear. It's insensitive, it's selfish. And I think maybe there's a thing of saying it's very easy if you've never been persecuted, or you've never really identified with those who have been persecuted, to go, well, God is love, eh? We've all sinned. Because I think, and that really resonated with me as a young person, and it made me think, wow, this Christianity is actually incredible, because it says some pretty brave, counterintuitive stuff about you don't have to prove how good you are, you don't have to earn, and there's a humbling thing to that evangelical grace-orientated stuff that says, if it's honest about its theology, that says, no, you're as much of a piece of shit as the worst piece of shit that you think is out there. I think that's radical. I think that's incredibly interesting, spiritually and philosophically. But I think I've never, had a family member disappeared by a death squad or been tortured by a CIA-backed fucking junta. So when I read about those things, when I read about the My Lai massacre or Abu Ghraib, I've stopped being comforted by the idea that there is no hell and have started being concerned. But then that old grace Jesus, that voice comes back to me. I don't mean in a spiritual way. I just mean as a kind of internalized set of concepts to say, yeah, but you're not supposed to be wanting judgment for other people. Forgiveness is the most powerful thing. And I think it's such a complicated thing, because it's been so weaponized by the right and by the defenders of the status quo to make sure that we don't change anything, to make sure that we don't demonize, in inverted commas, the people who are actual fucking demons. And I just think it's so much more complex. I also think it's so interesting. I'm listening to the way I'm talking on this with you guys, because we have, we don't necessarily agree on everything, but we've got a kind of common ground here. If I was on a conservative evangelical podcast, I would be so much clearer. I would be so much harder on a whole bunch of this stuff, and I would be very certain, and I would be speaking like boom, 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 and I would be using their lingo, and I would be fucking nailing it, chapter and verse, and it's just.
But isn't that conservative evangelical Christianity in a nutshell, though? Like you need the kind of quick, kind of simple answers. I mean, it's something like what Naomi Nixon was saying, actually, both on her episode of Beer Christianity and in one of her articles, in her article in this issue, where she was saying that basically, let me find it.
You're on such a roll. I really felt the power building for your argument there, Ernest.
Yeah, she said that on Beer Christianity, she said that, a simplified penal substitution version of the good news is easier to share. But also in her article, she's then said connecting with the gospel for progressive evangelism is more about how the story shines through us, rather than having an answer, packaged and ready to share. And so clearly there's a tension there, even just in her thinking, where she's obviously identified that, like the evangelicals do have a very simple, easy kind of, and in some respects, easy to sell kind of story. Whereas actually, when you sort of have a more progressive form of Christianity, actually, it does actually become more about that story element where you can't, there is no line you can have, no simple way of sort of saying this is what Christianity is and you believe this and you're done. And that's really hard to get to grips with, because if we do indeed take evangelism seriously, if we do think that there's on some level that's important, well, how do you sell that to people? If indeed that's what you're doing through evangelism, if you are selling something to people, that becomes very hard, because it's humans absolutely love a story, but for a story you've got to sit down, you've got to be with it for a while, and in the modern day that's not really where we're at.
I think the thing that comes to mind is from the magazine again, just Mark Woods, who is a lovely man, probably more conservative than I am. No, almost certainly on a lot of things, but just a very good writer and just a generally good egg. And he was writing about that thing about St. Francis and, spread the gospel always, and where possible, use words. And how I always found that a little bit irritating as a young evangelical, of like, oh, come on, we can use words generally. I think that'll be fine. It's just, you don't have to be a dick about it. And I don't think these are only two choices, which I guess is the fundamental question that you were asking here, Adam. But I love the way he ended this thing, because he's talking about, how obviously that's a misreading of who St. Francis was. But also he says, he asks the questions about, like, what can we say then? Like, how can we be reasonable if we are going to be using words? And he says, and I wonder if this resonates, but and here, for what it's worth, is what I'd say myself if anyone were interested, that Christianity offers me a world of ideas and imagination, of aspiration and rebuke, which I find endlessly fascinating and deeply satisfying. It's a story I inhabit rather than a philosophy I understand, at whose heart is a figure whose character is perpetually challenging and entirely adorable. If my imaginary interlocutor were to press me further, I'd read some of the parables with them and share some of their extraordinary insights into human nature and divine grace. And I wouldn't expect it to work in evangelistic terms, but I'd hope that they would tread softly, for they'd be treading on my dreams, and perhaps they'd dream along with me, which gets, a bit poetic there, but it seems to be it's a more real way. It's like we're talking here, it's like none of my friends who knew me when I was a young fundamentalist are more likely now to become Christians, but they are less likely to hate Christianity because of me, which is not nothing, I guess.
I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. That's not nothing. And I think I share a similar story of, when I was at school, I think I was like nice for the most part, if, whatever that means. But actually, if you press me on, and actually I would say, and I think there's probably a lot of people who feel like this as young evangelicals growing up, you are taught that Christianity is a certain thing and that there are certain beliefs. I mean, I had absolutely no idea till I was in my late teens that it was even possible to have a form of Christianity that didn't believe that practicing homosexuality was wrong, right? And it wasn't until someone modeled that for me that I was like, oh, that's fine then. Because I was already looking for that, right? And I think that's the thing, is there's a lot of young evangelicals who aren't actually necessarily like, they love God and they believe, the gospel, whatever that may mean to them, passionately, but actually some of the ways they've been taught, some of the things they've been taught that is, they're deeply uncomfortable with it. And I certainly found that. And as I say, it took that modeling for me to realize that actually maybe this Christianity thing, or to start me on that journey of thinking this Christianity thing is perhaps a little bit more, that there's more to explore there than I've been led to believe.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember so many things as an evangelical, and I converted after high school, and I came from a completely unchurched, unchristian background, and I just remember, like, I had this intense spiritual experience. I came to a philosophical conclusion about truth, and I'd been desperate to know it the whole time, which comes from having ADHD and not knowing what the fuck is going on for most of your life. You get a real desire to understand what's going on. I'm sure that's why I got into politics, because I was like, why the fuck is this happening? It's horrible. And then, you feel like, oh, I think I finally understand. And then you're like, oh, cool, I'm Cassandra. Like, nobody's going to believe me. Like, nobody else even cares. Like, awesome. And like, but I think I had that experience, and and then you ask people who are in it, okay, so what's this all about? And then they tell you, oh no, it's a system. It's a perfectly functioning, it's like a fucking machine. And you do this, and then that happens. And all of this stuff in the Bible, it integrates perfectly, and it's like cogs in a machine, and there are no contradictions with life or within the text, and the theology is perfectly worked out. And you know what? That was so comforting. I'm sorry to smack my table. I've got a microphone here. Adam's going to come around and punch me in the face. But like, I found that so comforting. And I understand why people like apologetics, because apologetics has got fuck all to do with convincing people outside the tent that it's true. It's only to comfort those inside, to go, don't worry, you're not dumb for believing this, which I think is something that's worth hearing. I think that's something you can model to people, because I think what we're doing is saying, don't worry, you don't have to be a right-wing shitbag to believe this, you know? Like, we're also engaging in apologetics of that kind, I think, as well. And I wish I had more certainty to an extent. You know, I know the certainty is what makes you an asshole a lot of the time, but I wish I had some more certainty, because I think this thing is good, and I don't have the confidence anymore to tell people that with any, I don't want to say force, but do you know what I mean? Do you get that? Do you feel that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the apologetics thing is interesting as well, because, I mean, in your interview with Rose Hudson Wilkin, which I have many thoughts about that interview that I'd be happy to share. One of the things that she said was that she doesn't really like apologetics. She doesn't go in for that. What was it specifically? She said, I don't think that God needs to be defended, and I don't think God asked us to defend him either. What he asked us to do is extravagantly sow the seeds of his love, of his forgiveness, of his compassion, of his mercy. When we do that, then we will draw others to Christ. And I absolutely love that, right? I love it. However, I don't necessarily think I agree with you that apologetics is only for those who are already inside the tent. And the reason I think that is because more than one person has, I mean, in fact, I'll talk about one specific person. So when I was doing my master's, and I was part of an SCM society, actually, and we had a young person come along. She was 18, just come to uni, joining for that year, and she really wasn't sure about any of it. She specifically wanted some, and she didn't use the word apologetics. Obviously, I knew as someone who was studying theology what it was she was asking for, but she specifically wanted that. That was what she asked for. And it was then I really started to think, well, because I had previously been interested in apologetics when I was a young evangelical and thought that William Lane Craig was the greatest thinker ever. But I moved away from that quite quickly and found apologetics just to kind of miss the point. But it was only when this person came along and said that's really what she wanted at this point, because she wasn't sure. And I thought, well, there's got to be a better way to do this. You know, is there a way to think about apologetics, to approach apologetics that kind of isn't actually about proving God? And I don't know, that almost seems like a contradiction in terms, but I think there's something to that we need to dig deeper on, to think about more.
And do you think it was the content of the apologetics that made the difference? Because I think it can work for people outside the tent as well, but what it's doing is convince it. It's like when we say, you know, we're not like anti-vaxxers. We believe in science. You know, we believe in the science. Fuck, we do. The fuck we do. We believe in the scientists. We believe in our our authority that we've chosen. Now, we have a much better reason to trust that authority than fucking Jim on the internet.
Still a logical fallacy, though.
But yeah, exactly. and I think it's like that. It's like the people inside the tent. You want to know that you're not a fucking dumbass if you believe this. Like that kind of 19th century model apologetics that Lane Craig and all the other lovely people who do that, John Lennox and those chaps who, you know, like say some appallingly dismissive things about non-Christians, but their whole shtick is just to let you know this isn't dumb, this isn't insane, and this is a really positive thing that you could have. We probably do need a better apologetics. It's like that. It's like there are things that you can have a nuanced conversation about, and there are things that, because of the situation in society and history, you just need to shut the fuck up about. Like, is it reasonable for, you see, I don't even want to say any of this shit. Like, men and white people and fucking straight people and like all the nuance about those identities and whether you have something reasonable to say. And I mean, thank God we've now understood the politics of deference a little bit, so that we've moved on from the place of like, oh, depending on your identity, you can participate in any conversation or not. And, you know, again, even saying this, I sound right-wing to myself. I want to give myself a slap. But I think it's like that we live in a world where Christian nationalism has been on the rise since the 60s. And they've just been gathering their forces, and they got a real boost with Reagan. And then in the last 20, 30 years, they've just taken off again. And the Christianity that is out there is so aggressive, and its apologetics is browbeating and fear-mongering and hate-mongering and othering. So I can't imagine participating in apologetics directly without feeling like I was doing that, you know?
I wonder whether this is the thing I've been thinking of the last few years. So have you come across, I'm sure you have, come across Mike McHargue, Science Mike?
Nope.
Okay, so he used to be part of the Liturgists some years ago at this point with Michael Gungor and one or two others, I think. And then there was something happened and nobody really quite knows what happened, but like they had a falling out and now they don't do the Liturgists together.
And he's the one who seems to kind of still have his shit together. Let's just leave it at that,
yeah, I
know. I say that as someone that was an absolute huge Gungor fanboy and still thinks the kind of classic era stuff holds up. But that guy went to some interesting places.
Yeah. But like Science Mike is an interesting guy because his kind of backstory is he was an atheist for a long time. He's super into science, etc., etc. And he had an experience on a beach one day and couldn't explain it. Went to see some, I don't know, psychologist or something to see if he was nuts. And this like therapist person said to him, "I don't think there's anything wrong with you. I think you just believe in God." Right?
Well, fix it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so he's written this whole book about that gets into things like that kind of really focuses on what the practice or what a spiritual practice brings, right? And I wonder whether that can be a form of apologetics as well. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Maybe that's what some people are looking for. Maybe that's a progressive form of apologetics where you say, well, okay, here, this is what's going on neurologically when you meditate, for example, and here are the benefits of it, and you know, and so it's that kind of, I guess it boils down to that kind of thing of you know, but do you believe first or do you practice first?
Yeah.
And maybe some of us lean more towards you practice first.
What about witness? Because witness is different, right? I mean, I don't want to get into, I mean, this feels like, you know, evangelical weeds, like, you know, well, are we praising or are we worshiping? Is this intercession or is this supplication? Which just makes me want to kick somebody in the nuts. But like, there is a thing about...
You rattle off a lot of fancy words, don't you?
Amazing. But like, our witness to people is something that is maybe more palatable when you're in this space where you want to distance. I mean, I know a guy, old friend from back in the day, who was in a Christian band, and I said, come on the podcast, and he was like, nope. I had at that point Bare Christianity and then a tiny little Spotify-based music show that I think 5 people listened to.
I've listened to it.
And he was like, I'll come on that one because I don't want to have the word Christian associated with me and my music, because over here, he lives in the States now, he says, over here, that means Trump, that means you hate gay people, and I'm not doing that. And I mean, this is a person who, you know, had albums like Risen, you know, and like there's very obviously Christian stuff, and you just you don't want to associate yourself with it. And I can't even remember what the fuck I was talking about before I started. I'm so sorry. This, like, I got distracted by my own side quest. That's terrible. That's so embarrassing. I'm on a podcast. Come on, Langley, get it together. Damn it, man.
Something I picked up, Adam, when you were talking about this, is you talked about the idea of selling, something you could sell. And I think, you know, it's so fascinating to me that I think once you start noticing the language of business in evangelism, I always want to say evangelicalism because I'm so used to talking about how bad that is, but just evangelism. Once you start noticing the language of business in there, it's hard, you know, essentially we're talking about sales pitches, right? We're talking about people developing sales pitches so that they can sell their product to potential consumers. And I think once you start noticing that, it becomes really clear. And I think it's really important, therefore, that actually what we think about as evangelism in Scripture is just like not, because they are not aping like the market, like, or at least how it's so different to what we have now, because so much of evangelism is fundamentally about copying business practices for marketing your product, right? And I think that's true not just in Christianity, but even, you know, it's really interesting how much of those ideas, even in leftist spaces, when it comes to, and, you know, Adam, I'll let you have a field day with this, but particularly with electoralism, right? Like, particularly when it comes to trying to win votes and stuff, suddenly we're all capitalist business owners. But yeah, I think it's hard to imagine evangelism outside that sort of language, but obviously that's relatively, in the grand history of things, recent ideas that are being pulled in.
So I don't want to sound too much like a communications guy whose entire career was doing that, but I mean, what I laughingly call a career was doing that. But we had a guy on our podcast we had a blast with, Jeremy Steele, hella nice guy. And at one point I said to him, we were talking about this, and I said, what's the pitch? What's the sales pitch? And he's like, oh, I hate that language. It's so capitalist. It's so like, you know, fuck you, man. He didn't say that, but it was just like, it was very much what you're saying. And I gotta say, I don't think I agree. I think
Thank you, Jonty. Thank you for being on my side in this against Ben's nastiness.
Okay, I didn't realize this was a marital dispute, so now I feel very uncomfortable. But I do hear what people are saying. First of all, I don't think that clarifying a message for the consumption of an audience is inherently capitalist. I don't even think it's inherently mercantilist. I think it's just communicating. I think the iconography of the early church, who were a bunch of commies, is specifically distilled in order to communicate a message and also to make things appealing. So the Gospels were created to do that. Jesus tells you to go out and make disciples, which is a lot harder of an ask than just fucking give people the message. It's saying like, no, I want outcomes, not outputs.
Exactly. It's doing it with people for a while, isn't it? I mean, that's the point I was about to make, actually, is that making a disciple is very different to making a believer, because it implies that you are in relationship with them ongoing, not just you turn up, you say, believe or go to hell, and then you go.
And frankly, who has the time to be in relationship with people? I don't want that at all. No, I'm joking. I'm just watching me lose you both.
Not coming on the podcast again, are you?
Yeah, my wife always is just like, you just can't help yourself, can you? As soon as people start agreeing with you, you're like, okay, now I'm going to be a dick and see what happens. I'm just like, I don't know what it is. But no, I think having something, you're not selling it. It's shorthand to call it a sales pitch, but you're not selling it because it doesn't cost them anything except their whole lives. No, but it doesn't cost. You're not trying to gain. if you're doing, and maybe we're getting back to that the motivation of why. If you want somebody to join your team, that's your motivation for this. I want more people on my side of this arbitrary line. Then I think that is the negative side of selling. That is, I'm gaining something because I'm gaining a buddy, I'm gaining a fellow soldier, I'm gaining weight on this side. But if you're saying the sales pitch here is, I'm encapsulating what the value proposition is, as you would say in fundraising. Like, why am I going to do this thing? Why am I going to give money to this organization rather than that organization? And those organizations have to make the case. This is what we're going to do with that money. These are the people we're going to help. This is our theory of change. All of these things. Like what is it that? Otherwise, why are we telling people this? Because that's the question is implicit when you're hearing somebody talk about this. Is, yeah, but why would this mean anything to me? Why am I even listening to this? I could be watching Seinfeld right now, or whatever. Like, that's the what's in it for me, or what's in it for the world, what's in it for anybody. I think is worth, or is it true? Because we're postmodern enough now that we can't prove it. Lane Craig is not going to win anybody over except people who just want to know that, okay, it's reasonably possible. And making somebody a theist is not the same as, convincing them of Christianity. So then it's literally just saying it with enough conviction to people who trust you. No, but this is true. Now, honestly, I think that's more effective than most of the other, forms of apologetics. Is just going like, well, fuck, he seems very convinced. And he's not a dummy, and he's not an asshole, so maybe, and then that comes to that really weirdly evangelical place of, but what is different about your life that they'd want to know,
It sort of reminded me again of some of the stuff that you were talking about, or that Rose Hudson Wilkin was talking about, and particularly the bit where I think you asked a fairly amusing question about being a terrible person, and then she said, "Yeah, sometimes I take off my dog collar to when I'm driving a car, so I don't."
Yeah, because I can't put a fish on my car. I can't put a fish on my car because I want to murder people when I'm in my car. That's terrible.
So I am a really bad person for this. I love tailgating people that have fish on their cars just to see how they respond. Like, you're going to put that shit on your car, you've got a responsibility. I'm going to test that.
But I think this was a part that I found really interesting, though, and a part of my, because this whole interview that you did with Rose Hudson Wilkin, I came away from it with fairly complex kind of feelings, because there was stuff in there that I was like, yes, wonderful, love it, like the thing that I mentioned before. But then there were some things where it kind of, I don't know if it like kicked up some of my own kind of religious trauma or something, because it sort of seemed to hint at things without necessarily saying them wholeheartedly that kind of resonated in a bad way with me. But what I found interesting, she said that she basically gave kind of two definitions, in a sense, of what the good news actually is. Because I think this is the thing. This is so often what this boils down to. What is the good news? And there's obviously another article later on in the magazine that says, if I can't remember exactly what it said, but if it's bad news, then it's not the gospel or something like that.
That's right. If it's not good news to you, then it's not the gospel. Johnny Baker wrote that. Yeah.
And
I think
I met Johnny Baker across an event a couple of years ago. Sat down in the dining room with him and had a good conversation, but can't remember for the life of me what that was about, other than the fact that he squeezed out of me the fact that I was an anarchist, because as an anarchist I have to get that into every conversation.
You say squeezed out of you like you don't want. Hi, I'm Adam. I'm an anarchist.
It was a gentle squeeze. I'll be honest.
Like a full tube of toothpaste, but you just need to do a little.
Okay, but are you guys like this, where it's like, I remember at a youth group or something that I was at. I mean, I don't know what business I had being at a youth group, but our youth group went into your kind of early 20s, and they were like, so how are you going to, bring it up? Like, how are you going to let people know you're a Christian? And I was telling this story to my wife, and she started laughing before I told her like what I thought, which was just like, how the fuck would they not know that I'm a Christian, or
exactly
what music I'm into, or like it's just like how do I raise the fact that I'm politically left? They'll fucking know, you know what I mean?
See, I've had such an adverse reaction to this, and partly because, like, one of the ways that I think clearly I'm different to both of you, I know I'm different to Adam, is that I'm a very hard to get to know person. Like, and I see myself doing this, and like
Small Johari window.
Yeah. Oh, what is that? I've never heard of that.
Oh, your Johari window is how much of yourself you show other people, and I'm like a fucking glass house. I think.
Yeah. I'm a
like, people are just please tell me
with your
less.
dressing gown open. Stood at the window,
yeah, exactly. Gen Z people and boomers are saying say less.
No, but I'm very much the opposite, where like. And I think it's partially probably from years of working with young people, where like professional boundaries is such. Like, you kind of you purposely shut a lot of those doors. But I think I lean that way anyway. And then also I think a lot of it is just a reaction to the idea that like I should be introducing the fact that, like, by the way, I've accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior into like every conversation with like the person who's doing the checkouts at Tesco's, right? Like, and I think I've almost had like the adverse, like you have to properly like squeeze it out of me, and not in the Adam way. I'm talking like you probably don't have any toothpaste left in this tube, sort of squeeze it out of me to get me to admit. And I it's something that I'm like trying to be more, less.
You must be
tightly
who you
held
are,
on,
man.
but like
the world's got a lot of us.
yeah, but I'm probably too far the other way, where I'm like, oh yeah, you could probably spend like a whole week with me, and there are parts of my life you would certainly be ignorant of. So, like, I think it is a reaction to some extent to that kind of pressure that I grew up with.
But I think people can. This is my kind of feeling on the matter, is that I've observed, and I have done since I was a teenager, younger than a teenager, I've observed people who, much like you, Jonty, people are going to know I'm a Christian, but just because that's like, I go to church, I talk about these things, that's just naturally part of who I am and what I'm into and what I talk about, right? And that's how people know. But I remember, and indeed have for many years observed people who, it's like they were forcing it because they just had to get it into every conversation with everyone they ever met. And the thing is, I always felt that people can sniff out the inauthenticity. Like if you're saying God bless to every single person you meet, like, and it doesn't feel quite right.
Blessed Christ Mass.
Exactly.
I used to do that. What a fucking asshole. I didn't say it, but I'd put it in the Christmas cards, and I think it was before I was a Christian. I was just feeling the conviction already then. I was like, fuck, I gotta do something. I'm just like, I think I just don't have a lot of shame, and not in like I feel shame for the things you should feel shame for, but like I have very low self-esteem, but I also like, a friend of mine was like, oh, I can't believe you just gave somebody your iPod. Don't you have any like guilty pleasures on the iPod? And I was like, no, I have pleasures. I don't feel guilty about any of them. And she was like, yeah, but there's this guy at my work. I could never show him my iPod because there's some stuff on him. He's so cool. And like, if he saw some of the songs on my iPod, he wouldn't think I was cool. And I was like, yeah, but you got to remember, he doesn't decide what's cool. Like, I decide what's cool. And she was like, oh, yes, I decide what's cool. I was like, no, sorry. I decide what's cool. Pointing at myself. And I think that's the thing, is I'm just like, like I I wouldn't believe this if I thought it was dumb. So I don't
Yeah.
need to hide it. Do you know what I mean?
When Adam and I lived together, quite early on, I came into the kitchen to find, and to be clear, we didn't know each other before we lived together. Came into the kitchen and he was playing Hillsong, and this reflects very poorly on me and my judgmental nature. But I genuinely was like, oh, I like him a bit less now. Like I thought we were getting on quite well. Like, maybe we won't be mates. Like.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I think for me as well with that, it's like, well, I'm a great bunch of guys. Do you know what I mean? Like my Laura, who does the podcast and the magazine with us, always says I contain multitudes. You know, about herself. Like I contain multitudes. It's I don't have to be, you know, one set of predictable things that the algorithm will, you know, through the large language model predict comes one after the other. So I was a fundamentalist Christian DJing in a goth nightclub, and that was fine and frankly amusing to me as well. You know, like it's that kind of thing. I think we all must get that. People are like, whoa, but your politics and your faith, that's weird. And it's like, well, it doesn't have to be weird. It's you know, it shouldn't be weird. It's, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It's just who we are, you know?
I was saying before that Rose Hudson Wilkin kind of gives two ideas of what she thinks the good news is that are joined with each other. And she says, constantly echoing and sharing what God is doing in our lives, being thankful and sharing that with others. And the good news has got to be about the love of God, about God's forgiveness, about God's mercy, God's compassion, God's care. That's what we need to be sharing. And I think when I was reading that, one of the things I was struggling with is that there just wasn't much of a... I don't disagree with it as such, and I think that is a big part of the good news, but it struck me that there just wasn't a whole lot of structural kind of analysis in that. That how do you again, Ben, sell that that idea to someone who's going through the shittest time of their life, right? But then later on, she says, when somebody says, "Oh, I've had a terrible diagnosis," do we say, "Oh, I will pray for you"? And if the person says, "Oh, I don't believe in that stuff," do we have the courage to say, "I know you don't believe, but I believe"? What a difference that would make if we could courageously say, "I believe, and this is what it means to me." And I just want to caveat, I really like Rose Hudson Wilkin, but this just rubbed me up the wrong way because, you know, someone with, you know, variously disabilities throughout my life and health issues and going into churches where people constantly want to fucking pray for me. No, you know, like I went into a church about a year ago, and this guy got talking to this guy afterwards, and it came up in the conversation because it couldn't not. I think basically I needed to stand up because of some stuff that was going on, and indeed is going on, so that I wasn't in pain or was in less pain. And I said, "Oh, sorry, I've just got to stand up. I'm not being rude," because that's how it looked. And then we started talking about, you know, medical stuff and whatever. And he said that, you know, "Can I pray for you? You know, I believe in healing and all the rest of it." And I said, "Thank you. But," and I gave a fairly, I think, considered answer and referred to Paul and his thorn in his flesh and all the rest of it and how I had prayed about this and, you know, and he took my hand and prayed for me, right? Insisted. And so things...
Jesus, that's
I'm not
awful.
I'm not saying obviously that Rose Hudson Wilkin is doing that here, but that's what it reminded me of. That's why it rubbed me up the wrong way a little bit.
Yeah. And I think for context, I'm glad you liked the interview. It was done behind a set of toilets, porta potties, and behind a stage while they were trying to sound check. And I was standing next to the toilet. So we've got the professional photographer taking the pictures from one side, And then Malky took some pictures the other way, and it was 15 minutes, and Rose was standing up. She was coming from her gig at that stage, and I had caught her before the green room. And so I think wasn't necessarily giving the full kind of answer of what she was saying. I don't think she was.
And I'm not saying as well that, like, I'm not saying that she was actually saying anything necessarily monstrous there. It's just that that's for me because of my and I think this is the thing, how things are given is not necessarily how they're received, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I don't think that she's a monster. And actually, when she later on said, you know, people go on about evangelizing to Muslims and so on, and she said basically leave the Muslims alone. And what about your children and your grandchildren who haven't darkened a church door for ages? I love that. You know, I love that because, you know, there are so many people, particularly now with the rise of sort of right-wing Christianity more and more, that really think that the Muslims are terrible and all the rest of it. And, you know, the Bible proves this and so on. And I think that answer actually really, I really loved that. So I'm not, as I say, I think it's some and some, and it's like anything. You're not going to agree or disagree with everything wholeheartedly, are you?
I think her theology is more conservative than mine on a bunch of stuff.
I mean, she's a bishop in the Church of England.
She's a bishop in the Church of England.
And a chaplain to Elizabeth Windsor, right? So, like, we're not going to expect, like, you know, perfection.
And we're not liberals and centrists here, but what I dig is that we can actually not have identical beliefs and still have some kind of siblinghood in a larger story, which again, I would be so reticent to say in some contexts because it's a great way of erasing all of the really important things we should be talking about. But Adam, I also sort of say, like, fuck, that sucks that somebody did that. And it sucks more that they probably meant well, but just had no sense of consent,
boundaries,
and of
consent,
boundaries,
propriety.
What does the other person want? Oh no, I'm sure. And it just makes me think of another thing about evangelism, of like, a lot of the time it's that sense of, well, this person is really convinced and it means something to them because there's a demonstrable element to it. I remember when we had people living with us, we would go to church more because we were like, well, fuck, we should, just almost as a kind of, which is ludicrous because if they had a conversation with us, it would be like, you don't have to go to fucking church to be a Christian. That's nonsense. But there's just something in you that wants to, I don't know. There's something interesting in that. But the other part of it is about if we're not saying it fixes all of your problems, you're not instantly healed and rich, you know, it doesn't make you a better person than everybody else, and we're also not focusing on the hell thing, then sometimes, like, well, what is it? And honestly, the thing that non-Christians have come to me the most about is like, will you please pray for me? And I know a bunch of people who became Christians because of what they considered to be miraculous shit that happened in their lives. And like, I've had stuff happen in my life that I'm like, that's God's intervention. Like, I don't know where to put that theologically, because I don't think you can expect that necessarily. So why for me and not for somebody else with a much, I think that's something that we need to wrestle with. But I think there's also something in that about a witness of like, there is something that makes this real and true. Coming back to the thing of, is it true? Well, yeah, because my experience, I'm not saying true means that I can prove it scientifically. I just know it to be true because of this evidence in my life, or potentially this evidence in your life. But consent, my guys, consent. And if this person says, I don't want this, also, this is what blows my mind about that. What the fuck is stopping you from praying for somebody who says, please don't pray for them, and not telling them? Then nobody's getting hurt. Do you know what I mean? And now I realize that people are going to say, well, that's still not consent. You shouldn't pray for somebody, even silently in your heart, if they say you mustn't pray for them. I don't know, yeah,
I mean, I've heard that
you're not doing any
before
harm
as well, but like I don't go for that either, to be honest.
Oh, really? You wouldn't pray for somebody who said, "Please don't pray for me"?
No. I'm saying I agree with you. Like
okay.
I've heard people, complain about that, and this is a bit silly, really.
That's a lot. Eh?
Frankly, the royals don't want me to pray for them the way I pray for them, but I still do.
There was a terrible televangelist who was very funny but awful. I now realize, but I remember one story he told about he hated his daughter's dog, and have I told you this before? I feel like I said this on the last one. I can't remember. Anyway,
Well, I
hated his daughter's dog, but he's a big faith healer preacher, and the dog runs out into the street. The dog gets hit by a car. Daughter brings the dog, says, "Daddy, pray for him." And he puts his hands on the dog and he says, "Take him home, Jesus." You gotta recognize that that's a solid story.
Yeah. And do you know the one who is an awful? Yeah, I think if we were being less than charitable, we'd say an awful human being is J. John.
I dislike that man.
I dislike him intensely, especially after the whole Russell Brand thing and everything. But his stories are funny, and there's something to me. My question is often, and actually, this is a question I often ask myself around evangelicalism and actually certain forms of evangelicalism in a slightly broader sense. Is okay. Well, rather than just hating on these people, is there something I can learn, A, from what they do, i.e. that we can do, I can do, and B, something they do that I must make sure that I don't do?
Yeah.
And, I think as much as I dislike J. John and disagree with so much of his stuff and his takes, what he has got is he's a brilliant storyteller, right? So how do we learn from that as well as learning from all the shitty stuff that he does as well?
And what Naomi Nixon said when we spoke to her on our podcast, just about what we can learn from conservatives and conservative evangelicals, and this generosity that they just because there's parts of it that they believe it, and they're committed in a way that I don't think I'm as committed anymore as I was when I was in that thing, and I should be. There's stuff I'm more committed to now, the justice and the financial generosity and the all of that kind of stuff. But like, I don't know if I'm as gracious a person. No, I'm definitely not as gracious a person as I was, and I don't want that to be a direct line to my change in theology, because that is not a good witness to that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember sitting in the Soul Survivor tent, hearing preachers talking about, this person would crawl over broken glass to save one soul from hell, and thinking, yeah, I'd do that. Which is perhaps, incredibly, big-headed and whatever of me. But at the same time, I really believed that at the time. Now, partly because I don't believe in hell, and actually, I'll come on to that in a second. But partly because I don't believe in hell, partly because, maybe I just don't think that it's as pressing as I once thought it was. Although, I don't know if I necessarily believed in hell then either, right?
Yeah.
But actually on that, very quickly, something I should have said earlier, and trigger warning for, mental health, suicide, that kind of thing. Something that really complicates this for me is that when I was a teenager, one of the things that kept me from killing myself was fear of hell. I didn't think I believed in hell, but the fact that some of those around me did, and therefore maybe it's true, was absolutely a factor in why I didn't take my own life. And that is like, honestly, and I know that there are other people for whom that's true. And wrestling with that, I've wrestled with that for, at this point, about 2 decades. What the fuck do you do with that? Right?
Yeah.
Because, fuck hell. Hell's a toxic idea, frankly. I mean, notwithstanding what we were talking about earlier. But at the same time, I'm still here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Christian because I was scared of hell. Like, fire and brimstone, like, save your soul from hell. That is why I became a Christian. My Christianity has evolved since then, but that is... And it wasn't like I was scared into making the decision. I had an encounter with God, but the thing that went away immediately was that fear, which is wild.
I find that interesting. Like, my experience was never fear for myself. Although, I guess on one level it's easier. That side of it's easier for me because my fear of dying has never abated, even slightly, in the face of Christianity. Like, I remain absolutely petrified of it. but also the thing that worried me was, like, I used to think about family members that I was convinced were going to hell. Like, I would stay. I remember as a teenager not be able to sleep at night because I was worried that, like, how could I even enjoy heaven if family members that I loved weren't going to be there, right? And I think that's I found that so deeply unhealthy that I find it really easy to just say, well, fuck any of that sort of stuff. But then you hear the story that Adam's telling, and it's kind of a very different. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to, I guess, be dismissive of that. But then at the same time, you wonder, were there better forms of being saved by Christianity available? Right? Is it as simple as A or B, or was there something better that could have saved your life there? But I don't want to be overly simplistic with it. But
No, but it was. I think you're right, though. And actually, yes, there were other things, but that's the thing. It was part of a package, right? So, like, Christianity as a whole and the church as a whole and the people there who were wonderful to me were part of what saved my life. But also part of what saved my life was, the slight fear that I might go to hell. But, one of the things you just reminded me of, which probably says a lot about my mental state at the time, is that I wasn't fearful that other people would go to hell because I truly didn't believe in it. Right? I was fearful that I would go to hell, just me.
So I think the conclusion that I'm drawing is that we can't make our theological decisions based on Adam's fucked up brain.
My brain's in a much better place now. Okay.
Yeah. But you're not saying it's not fucked up now. You're just saying it's in a much better place.
Well, it's fucked up in very different ways now. Well,
better directions. Yeah. That's cool. Love that.
I think. I mean, in all honesty, right? Like, I was going through my teenage years, and I was actually weirdly. I know I say all this stuff, but I was actually quite a level-headed teenager in a lot of ways. But I was going through my childhood and my teenage years as an undiagnosed autistic and ADHD person, and getting absolutely bullied to within an inch of my life every single day. So, like, that's what was fucking me up. There was like this, and now I'm not getting that. Like, I'm a lot better, right? Life has kicked me in the arse a few times, but, like, people aren't, kicking the shit out of me and stuff. And it's much easier to be a bit happier when you're not having the shit kicked out of you on a regular basis.
This is what they say.
And if anyone's ever wondered why Adam puts up with me treating him like I do, it's because I'm not physically violent towards him. So just my verbal...
The bar is so low.
My verbal bullying of Adam is just so normal to him.
It actually really hurts. So
yeah.
You're both English, so this is how love is expressed. Apparently, this is
wow.
What any of us foreigners learn when we get there.
As an anarchist, I reject your assumption that I'm English.
That's right. And also the reduction to nation. How dare you,
disgusting.
Disgusting.
And actually,
this is the kind of reactionary bullshit that you hear about Christianity.
I think we could keep talking about this for probably the next week, but I think for the sake of everyone's bedtime and the length of the podcast, we might draw the conversation to a close. But Adam has one thing he wants to say.
One last question, okay, to close us out.
Go on.
One last question, okay. which celebrity would be the most insufferable if they became a Christian?
Great question.
I mean, I would have said Russell Brand, but
Do you have a pitch, Adam? Do you have a particular idea that you're like thinking of this because of?
I haven't thought of one.
I know
specifically.
two. I can tell you two. One, because I loathe the man for really good reasons, mostly philosophical, and the other, because I loathe the man for terrible reasons. But I think Richard Dawkins would be fucking insufferable.
That's a good
He'd be fucking, because he's already fucking insufferable.
Yeah.
Richard Dawkins would be appalling. Anybody out there praying for Richard Dawkins' soul, stop it. Stop it immediately. That's a joke.
I think particularly because so much of what he kind of does and is already like weirdly conservative evangelical coded. Like it wouldn't actually, he would slip so easily into that. Like,
and he's such a conservative anyway, so he would just be, But you know what would be more irritating? Rowan Atkinson. Can you imagine a Christian Mr. Bean? Mr. Bean's already the most irritating.
Oh, that is a
it's interesting because he does.
And
Rowan Atkinson does play vicars a lot as well, doesn't he? So that's interesting.
I thought you were going to say because of what he says when he's like not being silent, right? Like,
no. I mean, I find him irritating on a lot of levels, but it's just Mr. Bean. Honestly, can we not? Why have we not progressed further as a society?
So I was originally thinking someone sort of, I mean, this is quite a dated suggestion at this point, but I was thinking like people like Jedward at first, and I thought, well,
no, we're pro Jedward now. Jedward, we've come back round on Jedward.
Are they? Are they like pro Palestine or something?
Yeah, I think they're cool. I don't know exactly, but I think they're cool now.
They're cool. Yeah.
But in the end, I went for like Jeremy Clarkson, to be honest.
Would there be that much of a change?
Can you imagine? Fucking hell. Okay, but now imagine Clarkson comes to Christ, has a come to Jesus moment, and his politics change, and he becomes all genuinely loving and progressive.
And the thing about Clarkson...
and kind, and he brings all of those dumbass young men with him. What a joy.
And the thing about him, I'm absolutely not a fan for all the obvious reasons you think of, but he is capable of being quite funny when he wants to be, and
he's very funny. That's the problem.
And he makes genuinely excellent television. Like, so what you like about the politics of those classic Top Gear, like they were brilliantly made. But so actually, could he use that for good? Those skills are not inherently evil.
Would he be irritating?
Yeah, probably.
You know who would be irritating? Richard Hammond. He would be irritating. Richard the Hamster Hammond.
We're going to start doing a Stuart Lee bit so hard. I just feel it coming.
I think we're all Stuart Lee in our minds right now.
Have you got one, Ben?
Stephen Fry.
Oh yes, that would be
fair.
so irritating.
That is
so
fair.
irritating.
He's already irritating with his faux intellectualism, like, and like it's absolutely, once you realise that the reason you think Stephen Fry is smart is because he's posh, like it all falls to pieces so fast. And like, he used to be funny, but he's not capable of being funny anymore. He doesn't really do anything interesting these days. He's got horrible reactionary politics already, and I think most annoyingly of all, because he's openly gay, assuming he carries on, assuming he doesn't do something awful like, become ex-gay or whatever, which would be terrible, like, he would end up using the fact that he was a gay practicing Christian as a shield to defend against all of the worst criticisms of him. Like, I think he would be unstoppable in this scenario. Like,
he would be a juggernaut.
Yeah. So that's my theory.
Yeah, solid.
And the answer, of course, that the most annoying Christians are, as always, the three of us and people like us.
The three of us.
And the people like us, right? Like,
the 7 people who've made it to the end of this conversation know full well who the most annoying Christian converts are.
Absolutely.
But God bless them for making it.
Yeah.
You're the real hero.
But also, if you're listening to this, there's a very high chance you're as annoying as we are.
That's true. Possibly more so. We should all think about that and work on it.
Cast not the first stone, etc., etc.
Indeed. Yeah.
On that note, we will bring things to a close. Jonty, thanks so much for joining us. Where in the world can people find you?
So you can find the magazine at shibbolethmag.com. We've also started a Substack, shibbolethmag.substack.com. Please subscribe to the magazine. There's so much good stuff in it. I think it's quite a good magazine, and we would love for more people to read all these amazing things that people are writing, most of them for free, because we don't have two beans to rub together. Wait, that's a different movie. Shibbolethmag.com, that'd be great.
And I do absolutely encourage people to subscribe. I am a subscriber. It is genuinely exciting when it comes to my door. And I think it's really, really interesting stuff. And I think there's something really lovely about... look, I'm a digital person. I don't fuck with paper as a general rule of thumb, but a physical magazine, it's quite like, I have it on your bed. I often read it when I'm eating breakfast. That is my...
Nice.
I have a bowl of porridge and read. I have a couple of magazines I subscribe to. And now I'll sit and read my Shibboleth over breakfast. So definitely get involved. Reading things on your phone is bad for you. We all know that. So get a physical magazine and get involved. Adam, where in the world can people find you?
You can find me, I normally say you can find me most places, but there are so many different places now that that's not true anymore. But you can find me TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, probably a few other places, at Commie XIAN, YouTube as well. And also, please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. You can now watch it on YouTube, and we're trying to get the numbers up. So if you can go there, subscribe, like, share, etc., that would be very helpful.
Also, I want to second Adam's TikTok stuff is so good. Always good takes, always interesting. You post a lot as well, which is so great because I am so wildly uncommitted. Well, you have posted a lot, and it's awesome. And yeah, I highly recommend Adam's TikTok.
Cheers.
It's awesome.
I recommend getting confused about the buttons on TikTok and just sending Adam random TikToks on TikTok, which is what my wife does all the time. Like the communication that Adam and my wife had is exclusively her sending a random video about, sorry, I pressed the wrong button again.
Literally, as we speak, right, there is a notification, you can't really see it on the camera, from your wife.
And it will be...
She does it all the time. And I don't even click on them, because I'm like, what Sarah's accidentally sent me a video again. Some of them are good, to be fair.
So yeah, spam Adam random videos on TikTok. That's my advice.
Please don't. Too many people do.
All right. Well, you can find the podcast in all the usual podcast feedy places. breadandrosaries.com. All the details there. Patreon if you want to chuck us some pennies to keep the show running. Beyond that, all it remains is to say thank you very much, Jonty. Thank you very much, Adam. And we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.